This is Soul Chaser Betty, a manga-inspired indie graphic novel created by and published by Brian, better known as B-Man, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his last name, and that is why he's known as B-Man, because most people can't. Even after I found a video of him pronouncing his last name, I'm like, I'm not even going to try because I keep getting tongue-tied every time I try to do it. So, B-Man is a video game designer who helped found Valkyrie Studios and the creator of the game Septerra Legacy of the Creator. In 2001, B-Man returned to sequential art with his character Betty, a never-before-realized game concept. Soul Chaser Betty started off as a webcomic running from 2001 to 2004 on his website, Twilight Tangents, and on the website GraphicSmash.com, and saw a print edition in 2007. We open with the graphic novel equivalent of a text scroll explaining how the ancient demonic soul called the Weaver is kept in balance by 7 warriors who are and must remain in a permanent dream state, and when one dies, another is chosen to take their place, and they are the Soul Chasers. We open in 1985, Munich, Germany, as an old man dies. We then jump to America, where Betty is traveling by taxi to spend the summer with her grandma. The driver sees a strange figure in the road and puts the taxi right into a tree. We then cut to the Soul Chasers battling the Weaver's Geist demons. The Soul Chasers are searching for Betty, who has entered the land of Nod, but it would seem the Weaver was waiting for this, what they call the transference, from the old man that died in the opening. Betty comes to, and a voice tells her she needs to wake up. She asks where she is, and that she can't wake up, that something won't let her. The voice tells her that he can help her and pulls her into him. She starts to feel weird and says something's wrong, and the voice turns out to be the Weaver, who continues to tell her that she is in his hands now and tosses her back to our world, where she comes to in the hospital. They return home, and Betty is just moping around, being a city girl out in the country. We learn that the whole reason she was sent out here was because her parents are getting a divorce. Her grandmother heads out to the store, and Betty stays behind and wanders around the family farm. She looks over and decides to enter the supposedly haunted woods. But I don't know how she knows that the woods are haunted. At no point in the story has anyone told her a ghost story about the woods, or has she made mention about hearing a story on past visits to her grandmother's. So she starts wandering around the woods. That's a great idea. City girl, no experience in the woods. Let's wander around by yourself and not tell anyone where you are. That's going to work out well. So she stumbles across some Civil War-era ghosts who turn out to actually be Geist demons, and whoosh! She's back in the land of Nod. She actually doesn't panic and accepts the situation really quickly and is like, "You want to fight? Okay, we gonna throw down." But she is captured and brought to the Weaver, who asks if she's returned to see his handiwork. She's all like, "What the hell?" And he tells her that this isn't hell, but he creates hell for those who trying to pass through. The Weaver shows her the taxi driver and tells her he didn't survive the crash. He then tells her that he only wanted her and the cabbie was just an extra soul on top of that, as he sucks up the cabbie's soul to keep under his dominion and use for his power. Betty asks why. She hears a voice from behind her say the Weaver needs them for his demonic army. She turns to see the Soul Chasers. They tell her that the Weaver traps souls as they pass through the realm of the afterlife. The Weaver adds that the land of Nod is his domain, and the souls of man who tarry there are his to trap, torment, and turn into his demonic minions. He launches his demons out at them, and the Chasers defend Betty, saying that the new Chaser is theirs. The Weaver withdraws and tells them that they can have Betty for now, but soon she will return to the earth, and will he. The Chasers then ask her where she's been and where her Runeblade weapon is, but she's all like, "Can someone explain what's going on, and who are you?" They tell her that they are the Soul Chasers, as if we didn't get this from the title already. They defend the land of Nod, a dreamland between the realms of the living and the dead, and she's been chosen to join them. Betty gets all excited and wants to know if she's fulfilling a prophecy. They tell her no, that each of them was chosen at random. Betty's all like, not buying it, sport, and wants to know how many of them there are. They tell her, with her, 7, for she's replacing Caleb, the old man who died on page 1. Now that his mortal body gave out, and as long as they are 7 strong, they can hold back the Weaver. Betty declares she's not a magical girl, and that she's going to wake up soon back at Grandma's in Armstrong. Rolf is taken aback, as that is the same place he is from, and the same home of a certain piano-playing dog. The rest of the chasers become concerned, as 2 chasers have never come from the same place before. Cormac says that she's not one of them because the Weaver said that she'd be returning to Earth soon. Rolf says no one can enter or leave Nod of their own free will. Cormac expresses that's his whole point, and thinks the Weaver has done something to Betty, and that she may have colluded with him, which I like Betty's reply. They fear the Weaver may have somehow interrupted the Soul Chaser's cycle and gained the power to enter Earth. They want to head back to consult the Chronicle and someone named Yasha. So they're going to consult someone named Demon on demons. Not the worst idea I've ever heard. However, Betty is flashed back to Earth, left wondering if this all just happened. We jump to a hospital in Spain and see a patient in a room where some sort of creature hanging from the ceiling. And then jump back to Betty as her grandma explains about ghosts and that a lot of the stuff she has is stuff she's just picked up on life's journey, and that she actually left a lot behind when she came to America, all as she sews up a hole in the backside of Betty's shorts, and tells Betty the story of Nod that sounds spot on to the story she got from the Soul Chasers, all while she sits around in her panties just waiting for her pants to be mended, because this is what the average girl would do. You wouldn't change into another pair of pants while the damaged pair are being mended. Nah, you just chill with your grandmama in your panties. But on the plus side, we have a go for fan service. Betty then goes to the hospital and actually finds Rolf there, confirming that all that has been going on hasn't been a dream. She watches over him, and while he's still unconscious, kisses him. Date rape! Date rape! Oh, who am I kidding? She's female. It's okay when they do it. As Betty leaves, Betty runs into another girl and immediately denies the allegations of any wrongdoing. The girl introduces herself as Tanya, the daughter of the doctor that treated Betty. Tanya tells Betty that the cabbie she was with had died last night, and Betty is like, really? I have to go and, do stuff, and runs off. Way to have empathy, you cold-hearted bitch. We cut back to Grandma's place as she decides to put Betty up in the attic to spend the night, as the rest of the rooms are apparently full of junk. Betty responds with, and this place isn't? You can't argue when somebody's right. Betty changes into an old baseball jersey to use as sleepwear and climbs into bed, because everybody just has a pseudo-bedroom set up in their attics. Listen, Betty, either your grandmother is trying to turn you into Anne Frank, or she just doesn't like you. Grandma tells her not to worry about ghosts because there are none in this house. Anymore. She ponders about the other soul chaser stuck in Nod and how she gets to go back and forth. She then goes to sleep and is instantly back in Nod and under attack. She complains that it's not fair that the other soul chasers had weapons and powers, and shwing! A massive blade falls out of the sky, and like Excalibur, she can't pull it out of the ground, and tries fighting the demons hand to hand. She comes back to the blade and tries again, and gets the blade to pop out and decapitates one of the demons. She now finds herself wearing shoes she wasn't before, and then, poof! She has normal clothes on rather than still being in just her jersey and panties. She realizes that she can make up her own wardrobe in Nod. Well, being a dream world, if you can dream it, it will come there, Inception. Please try and dream bigger, darling. We now find the Soul Chasers back at base consulting Yasha, and it appears that the Soul Chasers are being forced back, having their butts handed to them by the Weaver's minions. Betty vamps in teleport style, and they start arguing again whether or not Betty really is the next Soul Chaser. The Weaver bursts in and reveals that Betty really wasn't destined to be the next Soul Chaser, and that he had used what little power he still had over the earthly realm to cause her accident to send her to Nod, putting her in that position by default, and then he was able to make a deal with her, thus breaking the cycle and the balance. And he has sent minions to Earth. The Weaver starts picking the Chasers off one by one, killing their mortal bodies, leaving only Rolf and Betty. Betty then disappears back to Earth, knowing Rolf is in the same town as she is, and rushes to the hospital, taking the magical, mystical Dream Blade with her. She bursts into the hospital room and nothing. She pops back into the land of Nod and finds that the Weaver never sent anyone to get Rolf, and that the Weaver still wants him and Betty for something else. She strikes the Weaver, revealing his soul and the mark of Cain, forcing the Weaver to retreat. Betty and her grandma return to Rolf in the hospital, and Grandma explains the story of Cain to Betty. Apparently, she never went to Sunday school. Betty wonders why the Weaver left Rolf alive, and her grandmother surmises that maybe the Weaver needs a bridge from one world to the next, and that the Soul Chasers act as that, and he left the only two in the same town alive because it would serve as a stronger bridge. Back in Nod, Rolf starts to try and train Betty and explains that they were the two originally granted the power to wield the sacred blades of justice and faith, but now that the other Chasers are gone, their powers will start to manifest in them, the two remaining Soul Chasers. Betty tells Rolf to take a break, and changes into a skimpy schoolgirl outfit. "Oh, you little slut, does your grandmother know what you're wearing? Or lack thereof?" Rolf goes, "How are you doing that?" as she changes yet again into an even more revealing RPG-style female warrior outfit. Bikini armor. Remember, the less it covers, the better it protects. Betty tells him she doesn't know how she is doing it, she just thinks it and it happens. Rolf tells her that only the Weaver has the power to bend the Dreamland to his will. Betty says maybe it's one of her new powers, and Rolf replies, Soul Chasers can only appear as their subconscious projects them. Betty wants to know how he knows all this. Rolf takes her inside the Soul Chasers' base and reveals the Chronicle, a book that has recorded the entire history of the Chasers and their battles. Rolf tells her that she is now in the book. Betty says that she is a new secret weapon, as she is a Soul Chaser that can fight in both realms. Rolf tells her that she is not, because a true Soul Chaser would not have given her will to the Weaver, and that he doesn't know what she's become, but it's not a Soul Chaser. Dun dun dun. Betty counters with, but she's in the damn book. We cut to the baddies discussing their plans, and one wants to know if Betty knows about something called the Tear. The other responds with, it's impossible for her to know, we've never seen this before. Betty wakes up the next morning and wanders downstairs, half asleep, in almost nothing but her panties again. I got nothing against fan service, but should you, I just want to let you know that Betty is in her panties quite a bit in this book. Anywho, Betty finds a young man in her kitchen eating cereal, and out comes the Dream Blade to dispense with this blatant misogynist. Grandma appears with Tanya and tells Betty that this is Keith, her hired farmhand, and she introduces Betty as her demon-hunting granddaughter and asks who wants breakfast. Beta male cuck if I ever saw one. The three then wander off into the haunted woods and find the old mill. There they come across the local bully, Eric, who tells them this here land is his land. But Betty won't budge. There are two hits, Betty hitting him and him hitting the ground. Eric plans to return the favor, but runs off as someone jumps out of the nearby bushes. Turns out to be the local vagrant, Jim, who has apparently been missing, but no one brought up that fact beforehand. They set up camp, and Jim tells them about the ghosts in the woods and how a Civil War Colonel Watson tried to bring his lost men back with something called the Angel's Tear. Jim shouts that the Shadow Men want it back and leaps at Betty, but she now has barrier powers and blocks him. A moment later, Eric returns with his dad, the local sheriff. Eric points Betty out, the 50-pound, 14-year-old girl, as the one who whooped his ass. And his dad tells him, son, that's just sad. Yeah, that is sad. They return to Grandma's, where Tanya finds a bunch of old books on the occult. From the books, they find out that the Colonel hid the tear, but it was never found. But it is rumored to be somewhere around the old mill. Betty is convinced that Jim was sent to find the tear, and Tanya finds a map in one of the books that may show where the tear is, but it's nowhere nearby. The sheriff has Jim locked up, going to let him sleep it off, thinking he's drunk before cutting him loose in the morning. However, the Weaver appears to Jim, demanding the tear. He says he doesn't have it, that Betty must have it. Eric comes over, asking who Jim is talking to. Eric then asks if Jim wants to know where she lives and dangles the keys to the cell in front of him. Betty gets up the next morning, and the three once again head out, making Keith do all the lifting as they do the thinking. Soy boy! They come to the spot on the map and find ghosts. They transform into Geist, and Betty whips out the Dream Blade to attack, but she and the demons disappear. She's taken back to Nod and teams up with Rolf. The Weaver appears and sucks Betty into his robe. Back on Earth, Tanya and Keith continue to look for the tear as Jim creeps in the bushes. We rejoin Betty as she floats naked inside the Weaver, because being sucked into a monster's robes automatically disrobes you. She calls him a perv and rematerializes her clothes. The Weaver then begins to give Betty a history lesson on what is happening, but it's really just covering what has already been covered in the story so far about the struggle between good and evil and the history of Cain, for the most part. Meanwhile, Tanya and Keith find the tear and are jumped and chased after by Jimmy Boy as Rolf fights trying to get Betty out of the Weaver. Rolf is wounded, giving Betty the nudge she needs to break free. The Weaver then loses his control of Jim as he is chasing Tanya and Keith across the street, and he gets pancaked by the sheriff's cruiser. The Weaver withdraws, and Betty and Rolf go back to HQ. She is able to heal his wound. They find the Chronicle says nothing about the tear, but they know Betty can manipulate the Dreamland. She then curls up and goes to sleep, and Rolf asks himself why he puts up with her, and Betty, half asleep, responds with, "Because you like me." Rolf then gets a quick vision of Yasha, telling him she is the key, and Rolf realizes both their statements are true. The Weaver is now getting strong, with his minions now attacking people on Earth, as the group tries to find out more about the tear. They find out that it is Egyptian and disappeared in the 1860s after coming to America. Betty then goes to visit Rolf in the hospital, only to find his room wrecked. The hospital begins to fall into chaos, and she races outside to find one of the Weaver's minions in the real world. She goes to attack, and is back in Nod with Rolf. And the baddies reveal that their plan is to combine the two worlds in order to escape, as in, weave the two worlds together. Get it? Betty tells Rolf that the Weaver has taken his body. Rolf tells her not to worry because the Weaver needs them both alive, but if it should come down to it, she should let him die because it would hurt the Weaver's plan. Betty tells him she can't let him die, at least not alone, and fades back into our world. The sheriff and his son Eric come under attack and make their way to the farmhouse where everyone begins to hold up. Back in Nod, Rolf is fighting the Weaver's ally and finds that the other soul chasers haven't been erased, but absorbed into her. To use. Back on Earth, Betty charges through the town, now drenched in a thick fog caused by the Weaver. She comes across Jim, whose soul is now free from the Weaver. He tells her that he was sent back to deliver a message, that she's a conduit for the angels, but not as we know angels. They're the caretakers of this world, and mankind is just caught in the crossfire of their war with the Weaver and his allies, and that they want to use Betty as a means to finally end the war. Back at the farm, Granny starts breaking out the guns, or as she calls them, boomsticks. Bruce Campbell be proud. The Weaver's minions attack on both planes. Betty and the Weaver fight again, and she is sucked into his robes yet again. Betty unleashes the power of the tear and destroys the Weaver. The power flows to his allies and destroys them as well, freeing the souls of the other soul chasers. and Rolf is able to wake from his coma, the cycle broken, and the soul chasers no longer needed. We end with Betty and the others taking a family photo and newspaper clippings covering the unexplained events that happened over the summer. Soul Chaser Betty doesn't chart any new grounds in storytelling. It has a slight magical girl feel to it. It's just good popcorn entertainment. Don't expect to be blown away. Its creator described it as small girl, big weapon, bigger monster. If this is something you like, you may want to give the book a go. There was talk of a sequel that was supposed to come out in 2016, but I haven't seen anything on it. The creator does have a new workout called Soul Chaser Betty Slumber Party of Doom at the time I'm making this video. I'm not sure if it's the official sequel or just something else to go along with the original, and it seems that you can only get it at conventions where the creator has a booth set up. As for next time, I hope nobody's got a glass jaw out there. See you there.